I spent my whole life believing family was everything, until the day I walked into my mother's kitchen and discovered mine had built a wall, and I was on the wrong side of it. You know that feeling, right before a celebration, that buzz of anticipation? That was me, Sarah Mitchell, 34 years old, standing in my mother's sunlit Phoenix kitchen. I was holding my little sister's wedding invitation, the paper crisp and expensive in my hands. The big day was tomorrow. My dress was hanging in the closet, my toast was practiced in front of the mirror. I was just happy. "Mom," I said, my voice bright as the Arizona morning, "I can hardly wait for the wedding tomorrow." The clatter of her spoon against her ceramic mug was like a gunshot in the quiet room. She froze. Then she turned, and her eyes, they wouldn't quite meet mine. "Sarah," she said, and her voice was a quiet, terrible tremor. "The wedding, it was last week." The air left my lungs, just vanished. The invitation slipped from my fingers, landing face up on the granite countertop. I snatched it back, my heart hammering against my ribs. The date stared back at me, bold as brass. Tomorrow's date. "What are you talking about?" My voice was a shaky whisper. "It says tomorrow." She wrung her hands, a nervous habit I'd seen my whole life. We sent you the wrong date. It's over. It's done." A roaring started in my ears. This wasn't a mistake. This was a surgical excision. My own family, my mom, my dad, my baby sister, had deliberately, coldly cut me out. And in that single breathless moment, my entire history with them rewrote itself. The thousands of dollars I'd poured into their lives, my sister's fledgling venture I'd saved from collapse, the new roof for this very house, their anniversary trips. It all flashed before my eyes, not as acts of love, but as payments for a membership I never truly had. My jaw clenched. The hot sting of tears threatened, but I pushed it down. I would not cry. I would not beg. Something inside me, something soft and forgiving, finally hardened into stone. They thought they could use me and toss me aside when I was no longer convenient. They were about to learn a very painful lesson. I wasn't that easy to erase. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe. That night, back in my quiet condo in the historic district, I stared at that beautiful, lying invitation. The elegant, swirling script felt like a taunt. Every loop, every curve was a reminder of their conspiracy. How long had they planned this? How many hushed conversations had they had, deciding I wasn't welcome? My mind drifted back, a painful tide of memories. 3 years ago, my sister, Chloe, then 26, was bursting with her new graphic design venture. She had the talent, the drive. Then her biggest client vanished, leaving her with $15,000 in debt. The call came at 1 a.m, her voice thick with tears. "Sarah, I'm ruined. Please." I didn't hesitate. I transferred the money the next morning. "I'll pay you back every penny," she had sworn. I never saw a dime, not even a thank you note. I told myself, that's what family does. Then, Mom and Dad's plumbing nightmare. The entire system in their aging home needed replacing. $25,000. "We'll have to take out a second mortgage," Dad said, his voice heavy. So, I wrote the check, money I'd earned through a decade of late nights as a financial analyst. I thought it bound us together. I was so naive. And the social slights, always being the last to know about family gatherings. "We thought you were too busy with your important job," Mom would say, her tone just sharp enough to make me feel like my success was a character flaw. The worst was showing up for a birthday dinner I'd circled on my calendar for months, only to find a dark, empty house. A text from Chloe an hour later, "Oh, we moved it to the clubhouse. So sorry, thought you knew." I stood on their porch with the wrapped present in my hands, feeling like a ghost. My phone buzzed, pulling me from the spiral. It was my cousin Maria. She's a family therapist, and she's always had a sixth sense for when I'm in trouble. "Sarah, you sound hollow. What's wrong?" she asked, her voice soft but direct. I told her. The words tumbled out. The invitation, the date, my mother's confession. Maria was silent for a long moment. Then she sighed, a sound of profound weariness. I didn't want to be the one to tell you this, but it was deliberate. Chloe told your parents she was afraid you'd outshine her, that you'd show up in your designer dress and talk about your fancy career and steal her thunder. And Mom agreed. Maria's words weren't just information, they were a brand, searing the truth into me. My own sister, the one I'd rescued, saw me as a threat, and my mother, the one I'd supported, saw me as disposable. I paced my living room, the city lights of Phoenix twinkling below, indifferent to my personal earthquake. Every forgotten birthday, every snide remark about my fancy life. Every time I was the last resort for a loan, but the first to be excluded from a celebration, it all clicked into a devastating, undeniable pattern. You don't deserve this, Sarah, Maria said, her voice firm. What are you going to do? I stopped at the window, my own determined reflection staring back at the glass. They thought they could quietly erase me from their picture-perfect day. Fine, but they forgot one thing. When you've been the family bank for a decade, you pick up a few collateral assets along the way. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Maria's revelation had stripped away any last shred of doubt. This wasn't a visit for answers. This was a confrontation. I didn't ring the bell. I knocked. 3 sharp, solid raps. My father, Frank, opened the door, his newspaper in hand. Sarah, this is a surprise. I walked past him into the living room. My mother, Carol, was on the sofa, and Chloe was lounging in the armchair, phone in hand. The room went still. Why did you lie to me? I asked, my voice low and steady, like the calm before a storm. Chloe's head snapped up. Mom set down her teacup. Sarah, let's not do this, Mom began. No, I cut her off. You sent me a fraudulent invitation. You looked me in the eye and lied. Why? Chloe tossed her phone aside and stood up, all defiance. Okay, fine. You want the truth? She spat. I didn't want you there. You with your perfect life, your perfect job. You walk into a room and all the oxygen gets sucked out. It was supposed to be my day. For once, I wanted it to be about me. Fine. Then I decide to exercise my rights as owner of the family's house. Her words were like physical blows. I've given you everything, I said, my tone dangerously controlled. And you repay me by treating me like a contaminant? Mom moved between us, her face a mask of pained justification. Sarah, you're just so capable. You make the rest of us feel like we're not enough. Chloe deserved to have her moment in the sun without feeling overshadowed. I turned to my father. Dad? Anything to add? He shifted in his chair, looking at the floor. It's complicated, honey. Complicated? I let out a short, bitter laugh. You excluded your own daughter from her sister's wedding, and it's complicated? I looked at them. Chloe's smug defiance, Mom's weary excuses, Dad's silent complicity, and I saw no remorse. Only entitlement. I'm done, I said, my voice quiet but final. I'm done being your safety net. Chloe rolled her eyes. You're always so dramatic. Mom reached out a hand. Sarah, we're family. Don't make this a war. You started the war, I said, turning toward the door. You just didn't think I'd fight back. I walked out, the screen door slamming shut behind me with the sound of finality. They thought the war was over when I walked out that door, but I was just going to my armory, and I had a weapon they never knew existed. The day after the confrontation, I sat in my downtown Phoenix office. The memory of Chloe's smug face, my mother's excuses, my father's silence, it all fueled a cold, clean fire in my veins. I wasn't here to mourn. I was here to execute a plan. I opened my safe and pulled out a single, thick folder. Inside was the one thing my family had conveniently forgotten: the truth.
My first call was to Maria. She picked up on the first ring. "Talk to me, Sarah. Are you okay?" "I'm better than okay," I said, my voice steady. "Maria, do you remember about 6 years ago when Mom and Dad were in deep trouble? The investment scam that nearly pleamed them out?" "Of course! They almost lost the cabin in Flagstaff." "Right, the cabin in Flagstaff," I repeated, pulling a specific document from the folder. "The one I bought from them to save their hides for $250,000, my entire savings at the time. It's not their vacation home, Maria. It's my investment property. I've just been letting them use it all these years." There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. "You own the Flagstaff cabin?" she finally whispered. "They've been talking about it for years like it's theirs. They host friends there every summer." "I know," I said, a grim smile touching my lips. "And after the wedding, I'm done letting them live in my assets, both literally and figuratively." Maria's voice shifted from shock to fierce support. "It's yours, Sarah, legally and morally. They've leaned on you long enough. Don't you dare back down." My next call was to my lawyer, Evelyn Reed. She was in my office within an hour, a sharp, focused woman who didn't suffer fools. "Show me what you have," she said without preamble. I slid the folder across my desk, the deed, the transfer of ownership documents, the tax records I'd been paying for years. She scanned them, her eyes flicking back and forth. "This is impeccable," she stated, looking up at me. "Your name, your property, they have no legal standing whatsoever. They are, for all intents and purposes, your tenants. What would you like to do?" "I want to assert my ownership, formally, legally. I want there to be no confusion about who holds the title." Evelyn nodded, already making notes. "I can draft a formal notice of ownership and revised terms of use. We can establish rent or simply revoke their access. Your call. I'll have the drafts for you by tomorrow." As she left, Maria called back, her tone laced with fresh anger. "Maria, I just remembered something. Chloe has been using the Flagstaff cabin for client retreats. She tells people it's the family lodge, that it's part of her brand's rustic chic appeal." I felt my jaw tighten. Of course she was, using my property to prop up the very business I'd saved, while simultaneously cutting me out of her life. The audacity! She won't be doing that for long anyway.
The following week, with Evelyn's guidance, I began the process of severing every last financial tether. I met with my financial advisor, David Chen, and signed a stack of papers that felt like divorce decrees from my own family. "This closes the joint line of credit you co-signed with your parents," David said, pointing to the signature line. "The remaining balance is now solely their responsibility." I signed without hesitation. That line of credit, meant for emergencies, had become their slush fund. "And this," he said, sliding another document over, "formally removes them as authorized users on your accounts and severs any shared investment profiles. You are now completely financially independent of them." My phone lit up with a text from Chloe. "Sarah, I'm sorry. Can we please talk?" I stared at it. The same sister who laughed in my face was now reaching out. It was too little, too late. I flipped the phone over. "You don't owe them a response," Evelyn, who had joined us, said quietly. "Stay the course." David finished stacking the papers. "It's done, Sarah. You are legally and financially untouchable." A wave of relief so profound it was almost dizzying washed over me. The weight of being the family's ATM was finally lifted. Another text came through from Chloe. "Please, I didn't mean to hurt you. Let's fix this." I deleted it. Her apology wasn't driven by remorse. It was driven by the first chill of the financial winter I'd just unleashed.
About a month later, the consequences began to land. Maria called with an update. It's hitting the fan, Sarah. Chloe lost a huge branding deal, nearly 60 grand. Her and Mark are looking at a much smaller apartment. The word is they're stretched thin. I wasn't surprised. I'd been the invisible pillar holding up their lifestyle. Then I got a call from an unexpected number. It was Mark, Chloe's husband. Sarah, he said, his voice earnest. I need to apologize. I had no idea about the wedding. I truly thought you had a work conflict and couldn't make it. I should have asked more questions. I'm so sorry. His apology felt genuine, and for a moment it tugged at me. But it didn't change the facts. You're her husband, Mark. The lie was woven into the fabric of your wedding day. Your regret doesn't unweave it. The final confrontation came a few weeks later. I was in a budget meeting when my assistant's voice came over the intercom, tense. Sarah, your parents and your cousin Maria are in the lobby. They're insisting on seeing you. I took a deep breath and walked out to the sleek, corporate lobby. There they were. Mom, her eyes puffy, Dad, looking older than I'd ever seen him, and Maria, standing slightly apart, her arms crossed. Sarah, please, Mom began, her voice cracking. We're sorry. Can we please just talk? We're family. I stood firm, my posture mirroring Maria's. We had our talk, in your living room. You had your chance then. Dad stepped forward. We made a mistake, honey. A terrible mistake. Let's put this behind us. I shook my head. Then I looked at Maria. You asked me to listen, so I'm listening. But I had something for them to hear too. I pulled out my phone and played an audio message Chloe had sent to a friend, which had been forwarded to me by a mutual acquaintance who was appalled by it. Chloe's voice, giggling and slightly slurred from champagne, filled the space between us. And it was perfect, just perfect. No big sister to upstage me with her successful life stories. Mom and Dad were actually on my side for once. It was like we were a real family. The color drained from Maria's face. Mom looked like she'd been slapped. Dad stared at the floor. She planned it, Maria whispered, her voice thick with disgust. She turned to my parents. And you two? You went along with it. You celebrated it? Mom started to cry in earnest now. Teresa, we're drowning. Please, at least let us stay in the Flagstaff cabin, just until we get back on our feet. The sheer, breathtaking audacity of it left me speechless for a moment. After renting it out for income I never saw, after using it as a perk for Chloe's business, after all of it, they were asking for shelter in the very asset they tried to cheat me out of. No, I said. The word absolute. That cabin is mine. You've taken enough. Maria nodded, stepping to my side. She's right. You don't get to ask for more. Not after this. I signaled to Jeff, the head of building security, who had been observing from a discreet distance. Jeff, please see them out. As my parents were gently but firmly guided toward the exit, my mother's pleas echoing in the cavernous lobby, I turned and walked away with Maria. You did the right thing, she said, her hand on my arm. That audio, it's monstrous. You don't owe them anything. 6 months later, I'm standing on the wide wooden deck of my cabin in Flagstaff. The scent of pine and clean, thin mountain air fills my lungs. This is what freedom smells like. My career has soared to new heights. a direct result of the mental energy I'm no longer pouring into my family's bottomless pit. Maria and Evelyn have become my chosen family, my unwavering counsel. I learned through the grapevine that Chloe and Mark did indeed have to downsize. Their social circle has tightened. My parents, who worked so hard to maintain a facade of perfection, are now facing the quiet whispers in their community. The people they tried to convince that I was the selfish one are slowly starting to see the cracks in their story. They sent me an invitation to their anniversary party last month. I sent a tasteful bouquet to the venue with a simple card. Best wishes. No name necessary. The door was closed, and I had thrown away the key. As I watched the sunset paint the San Francisco peaks in shades of orange and purple, a deep, unshakable peace settles over me. The betrayal will always be a part of my story, but it no longer defines me. They tried to shrink me to make themselves feel bigger, but they made a fatal miscalculation. They pushed out the one person who was holding them up, and in doing so, they taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. Your worth isn't defined by what others take from you, but by what you build for yourself. I built this, all of it, and I'm never letting anyone threaten it again.